Okay, welcome. So today is our Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness meeting, and we're joined by a rooster today. My chickens, some of my chickens have taken up, I shouldn't call them my chickens, they're my wife's chickens. I disown them. They've taken up residence right outside my space here. So, and there's competition going on between this rooster and a rooster down at the barn, and they're crowing at one another. So we'll be perhaps accompanied by some roosters crowing. Um, and that will support us in relaxing because we never know when the rooster will crow. So we have to be very relaxed. So I'm happy that you're here. And today we're going to, as usual, we're going to relax in the health, wealth, and happiness. So that's our intention for today. And we will discover, if we allow ourselves, what that allows for us, what is possible. And today we're going to have a theme. Our theme is Mercurial magic, and so this is in keeping with our the theme from last week's archetypal awareness meeting. So some of you obviously were not present for that, but this is like a special treat. You get to peek inside. For those who are not participating in archetypal awareness, we're going to carry it over into relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness, and see what this archetype of Mercury can offer us that is magical. So the idea here is that we are functioning. That rooster is going to support me so much in relaxing. It's crazy. Either that or I'll just pass out from stress. So it allows us to okay, so the idea here is that we're functioning from through nature. So nature is the we could say the essence of everything that is. That's not difficult to understand, right? I mean, this is all nature happening. And nature has, we could say, a structure, and that structure is the structure by which everything is occurring, and we can call that magic. And so we want to start to familiarize ourselves with that structure, because if we're not familiar with it, then it's still there and it's still operating. But if we're unconscious, then we don't know what's happening, and so that can be very frustrating. That can produce a lot of uncomfortable and unwanted experience that is distressing because we're ignorant. And so when we peer into that and start to familiarize ourselves with that structure, then we can begin to use a common phrase, we can be co-creators of our experience, which is generally, I would say, a positive thing. So then we can start to choose to express authentically. And what does that mean? It means that we will be necessarily then experiencing the satisfaction and the harmony that feels good. So let's take a look at how we can do this. So we're going to be relaxing, but we're also going to be doing some little bit of movement today. So nothing too difficult, I don't suppose, but so be prepared that we're going to be doing a little bit of movement. And and in order to facilitate this, I'm going to see if I can do a screen share. I think I can. I should have familiarized myself in advance with how I do this through, oh, here we go. It's even blue. I can just click this thing. So I'm going to share my screen, and I am going to okay, so you should now see a very handsome fellow here. Hopefully you see that. And if you do not see that, please type it in the chat and let me know, but I think you should see it. And now you might be wondering, why on earth am I showing you this picture? And I'm showing you this picture. Let me see if I can move this thing out of the way. Yeah, I can. Okay. So is this the one I want to start with? Yeah, we'll start with this one. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Actually, before but let me stop sharing this. Okay, so now you can see this handsome fellow. Okay, but now I know that I can do that. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to just nod your head. So hopefully you're sitting upright. If you're not sitting upright, then sit upright if you can. And if you can't, then you can just imagine, or you could nod your head while you're in some other position. That would also be okay. But just nod your head and just feel what that feels like, and just see, just how is that? Hopefully that's not hard for you to do, and just get a sense of that, and then just relax for a moment and just notice overall how you feel and what your sense of your self is. And that might seem like a strange thing to say, but what is your sense of yourself? Do you feel clear in yourself? Do you feel good? Do you feel not so clear, not so good? Just get a sense. And notice, do you have a sense when you're not? So nod your head again, and just notice, what's your sense of yourself when you're nodding your head? What are you aware of when you're nodding your head? And then also be aware, what kind of idea do you have of your body as you're nodding your head? So what do you imagine is actually happening here? And then you can stop nodding your head. So there's this idea that's called, there's a fancy name for it. Let's see if I can remember the fancy name for it. It's no, I can't remember the fancy name, but it basically is, you're just your body sense, your image of your sense, your mapping of your body. And so we all have an internal mapping of our body. And usually that map is not the greatest. Or let's say even if it's all right, it could be improved. And as it's improved, what happens is we start to be able to move better, feel better, all across the board. Things improve because there's better accuracy. So we have a clearer sense of coherence between our inner and our outer experience. And so a lot of problems that people deal with on a regular basis, just basic feeling bad, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, as well as movement problems and physical pain, have an enormous amount to do with our mapping of our body, our internal map. And so if it's not clear, if our internal map is not clear, or if it's not accurate, then that's going to lead to problems. And so now what we want to do is we want to have a clearer, more accurate sense. We're going to update our image of ourselves. And then we're going to connect that with some movement that will facilitate that entire map, not only as a static thing, but as a dynamic thing that we can actually feel is alive within us. And then we'll see how that helps us. So now, again, I'll share the screen and we will look. And here, what I want you to see is that we are looking at a picture of an image that's a representation of the human skull. And you can see this area. I don't know if you can see where my mouse cursor is. If you can, then I'm not actually going to use it because it's just sort of obnoxious. But you can see in the upper portion of this, there's the two skulls, and just at different angles. And you can see there's a part of the skull that is red. And that is a part called the mastoid process. And then the lower part shows where you could map that to with the skin and everything on the outside of the skull, so that you can get a sense of where that mastoid process might be for yourself. And then what I want you to do is find that mastoid process on either side for yourself. So find your ears and touch your earlobes. You just sort of jiggle your earlobes. And then put your fingers behind the earlobes and just sort of slide them around and see if you can find where those mastoid processes are. So they're just sort of little bumps there on the skull. And if you can't find them exactly, you'll find you'll be in the right location, which is good enough for this. Okay, so with your fingers placed there, kind of you can, whatever's comfortable for you, you can use your thumbs or your other fingers and just sort of press a little bit in and up on those, not hard, just lightly pressing in and up. And now nod your head and get the sense that you're pivoting on these mastoid processes. And just feel that this can be really smooth and comfortable and easy and pleasant. Let your shoulders relax while you're doing it, if that's possible, and you can let your jaw relax and your tongue relax. And so then relax your hands and fingers and just notice, just doing that little thing with that little update. Now, how do you feel? What's your sense of yourself? Something's changed. And a big part of this process is just allowing for that change to sort of what would be the correct word here? Just let the change happen. Let the change happen. It sort of has to move through, trickle through all of the various layers of the physiology and consciousness. So just let that happen and just notice how you feel and let yourself feel good. Maybe you notice that you can feel yourself more clearly, not just in the skull, not just in the neck, but all the way down, maybe even down to the tailbone, down into the pelvis, down to your buttocks, maybe into the lower back, maybe into the abdomen. Maybe you can feel that your shoulders even are a little bit more relaxed. And so now let's try that again. So just find the mastoid processes and put your fingers there. And then just press a little bit in and up, just lightly, not no strain involved, and just nod the head. And sense that you're just letting the head pivot on these mastoid processes. So you might notice that this is probably a little bit further forward than you're accustomed to thinking of how your head might nod. So for most people, that will be the case. And so just this update on our inner map to more accurately sense how the head actually pivots as it nods will help us. And you might notice the back of the neck can really relax. So you can even let the head just sort of tip forward. Don't pull it forward, but just let it come forward. And let it go back. And do it smoothly. And really let yourself feel good as you're doing it. So that's key. If you're not allowing yourself to feel good, then it's hard to feel good. So you have to let yourself feel good. And then we'll bring the hands down. And again, just notice what's different. And maybe you can feel that the change is really kind of continuing to take place. So let it continue to take place. Be aware and let yourself get more grounded, to relax more. You can really feel that all the way down the spine. So the neck can be more relaxed, and the shoulders and the entire spine all the way down to the buttocks. Okay, so now I'll stop sharing that for a moment. And now another image that we can use. So that's one type of image that we can use, which is useful. So that's Mercurial, because we're using the imagery and words to update our sense of ourselves. Now, we'll use a different type of image, which is that of a sponge. So not really anatomical, but a different kind of thing. So think about like the sponge you would use to wash things, like kind of a big one. And you can imagine, maybe just imagine that you're holding that sponge and squeezing it between your hands. Just actually play along and do it. Just squeeze the sponge, and you can imagine the water squeezing out of it. And then imagine it's actually in the water. So as you now slowly release the sponge, it starts, you can feel it sucking back in the water, filling with water. And then you squeeze it in the water, squeezes out of it. And then as you slowly release it, the water comes back into the sponge. So hopefully you've had this kind of experience so you can actually feel it, imagining it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that the back of our neck is a sponge. Okay, so we're going to take our hands and we're going to put just one on top of the other like this. Doesn't matter which one you do. I mean, it sort of matters, but you do one and then maybe we'll switch and do the other way. So put one on top of the other, but behind the neck, so that the heels of your hands can now, you can just squeeze the neck like a sponge, just gently, not hurting yourself. And then as you're releasing, slowly imagine that that sponge of your neck is filling back up with water. And then again, squeezing the neck just gently, imagining that the water is being squeezed out of the sponge. So just be gentle with it, but use this image to really play along as though this is really true. And then as you're releasing, slowly feel that it's filling up with water. And then one more time, squeezing the sponge. And then slowly releasing and imagining that it's filling back up with water. And then slowly bring your hands down. So now notice how your neck feels, how your shoulders feel. So there's another use of an image. So this is a really nice one, this idea of a sponge. This is all, I've been learning, studying a little bit this, something called the Franklin method recently, and this is all inspired by the Franklin method. So this is an image that's used in the Franklin method, this sponge. And so you can do this with your shoulder, with the shoulder too. So you could just take your hand to the shoulder and just gently squeeze like there's a sponge there and you're squeezing the water out, and then slowly release it and imagine that it's filling back up with water. And then again, squeeze and release slowly so it's filling up with water. And then slide that hand down and notice the difference between the two shoulders. So there's a difference. And then maybe you want to do the same on the other shoulder, so you could. So you just reach over there and squeeze, just gentle. You have to, it's the imagery. You're just imagining that it's a sponge and you're just squeezing the water out and then releasing it slowly. So you're imagining that it's filling up with water again as you release it, and then squeeze the water out and then release and let the water fill back into the sponge of your shoulder, and slide the hand down. And you have to be present and pay attention to what's happening so you can notice, because some changes, quite remarkable changes are taking place, but you have to be present to let those changes actually really take hold. Otherwise, you'll go right back to the old way. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen again, and we can see where I've got. Okay, so now we're going to do some things with the shoulder blade, the scapula. So first of all, so here's a picture that shows the shoulder blades on the back. So this is obviously a back view. So the you can see that each of these shoulder blades has a they're sort of triangularly shaped, and then there's a ridge. It's actually called the spine of the scapula at the top that runs horizontally, and then you can see just in front. So these are the shoulder blades here are colored red, and then in front of those is at the top is the what we call the collarbone or the clavicle, and so you can see that the clavicle runs some sort of horizontally just in front at the top of the shoulder blade, and so there's a little bit of a space there between the clavicle and the spine of the shoulder blade. And just, I don't know if you can see my mouse cursor, but just if you can, then you'll see where my mouse cursor is pointing is to this, what I'm calling the spine of the shoulder blade. And then now it's pointing to the clavicle. And you can see that between them is this little space. And if I'm going to switch over to this other image now, and you can see here that on this image, you can see at the top on the right side, you can see at the top is the I think it's supposed to be at least the clavicle. Maybe that's not actually. Maybe that's just the. I'm not sure actually on this image what that's supposed to be. No, I think that's the clavicle. And then this here, where my mouse is pointing to, I don't know if you can see that, but is the spine of the shoulder blade. So then between them is this muscle, and the muscle is called the supraspinatus. So the supraspinatus is this kind of little muscle that runs horizontally in that space. And we're going to find that now that you've got that image. You're going to take your hand, and it doesn't matter which one because we're going to do both sides. So take one hand and bring it around to the upper chest / shoulder on the other side, and find your collarbone. So your collarbone should be somewhat prominent. It runs all the way from the sort of the middle of the upper part of the chest at the pit of the throat. And then you can kind of follow that across over. And so it's kind of, you should find it, it's a bone. So it's bony. I'm going to turn off this screen share for a moment. Okay, so you can find this collarbone, the clavicle. And then go back, just walk your fingers back to your back until you can find the shoulder blade, and you see if you can find the spine of the shoulder blade. So it's a ridge that's running sort of horizontally across there on the back, and it pokes out a bit, so you maybe can find it. And then just come a little bit forward of that, and then you'll have found the supraspinatus. And if you're not quite sure if you found it or not, then maybe you'll get clearer on that. And we're just gonna kind of give yourself a little massage in there. So it's just this space between the collarbone and that ridge, the spine of the shoulder blade. You just massage it in there, and as you go further out toward the arm, you'll find that it kind of gets a little pinchy in there because the space narrows, and then the supraspinatus actually has to pass through this sort of smallish passage, and where it comes out and attaches to the head of the of the arm. So when you lift the arm out to the side like that, so you could try that. You could try lifting the arm like you're flapping a wing kind of thing. And you'd feel that supraspinatus under your fingertips contracting a little bit. So it's not, I don't think the primary muscle involved in that movement, but it is involved somewhat in the movement. I think the deltoid, which is this large muscle out here, is more involved, but the supraspinatus has some role in that movement. So doing a little bit of that movement can help you find it. And also, if you do it slowly, and coming down slowly gives you a little bit of a pandiculation, which if you've participated in any of my somatics meetings, then that might be a familiar term to you. Okay, so, but we're just familiarizing ourselves here. So you might be thinking, what am I supposed to be doing? Just feeling. But notice as you're doing this, maybe you're getting more clarity on what's what. At least maybe you're finding what's the supraspinatus. And then you're finding other stuff and you're not sure, is that supraspinatus? Is that a bone? Is that a different muscle? What is that? We don't know. But you're getting a little bit of clarity, some tiny little bit. And then bring the hand down and just feel the difference between the two sides. So the right side and the left side, you've been doing one side, working on one side, and just notice there's a difference between the two. And maybe at first, you're not sure what that difference is. You don't know, is that good? Is that bad? Do I like it or not like it? You're not sure, but just notice there's a difference. So the difference is the thing to notice. So then let's also add another image in here. So that was like an anatomical image we worked with, and now we could add in a different type of image, kind of like what we did with the sponge a moment ago, but this time I'm going to share my screen again, so this might be helpful. So this shoulder blade can kind of slide on the back. So I want you to have an image now that the shoulder blade is like a bar of soap, if that's a helpful image for you. It's because maybe you've had a bar of soap, you've lathered with a bar of soap, and so you have a sense of like a slippery bar of soap. So it's sort of wet and moist and slippery. And that's the image that we want here. So imagine that your shoulder blade is like a slippery bar of soap. And now just shrug the shoulder, imagining that the shoulder blade is just sliding and gliding on the back like a slippery bar of soap. And so you've got this slippery bar of soap sliding and gliding on the back. And really, the more you can actually imagine that and sense, and just play along that that's really true, the more that this will be helpful to you. Now, you can also, you could just go forward and backward. Imagine that it's sliding and gliding kind of on and off the back, forward and backward, and then up and down. You can go up and down, forward and backward. So you can move it in these different directions. And as you're doing that, you could also notice that you could think to yourself, for example, you could think, this is enjoyable and easy, and my shoulder is gliding nicely and pleasantly. You think, I like this. This is enjoyable. Now, you might be thinking, no, I don't really like this, but just play along and just try it out. I like this. This is fun. Just think that. I like this. This is fun. I like moving in a nice way. This feels good. And just notice what that's like when you do that. All right, then relax. Just stop the movement and notice the difference between the two sides. Now, I notice a really big difference. I notice that on my right side, which is the side I've been working with, that shoulder is much clearer to me in my awareness. And actually, I can feel that it's much more relaxed. Okay, so one more thing that we'll do, one more thing that we'll work with on the same side. I'm going to show you another image. So this image, see that on on this image on the right side, this person is lifting the arm. And pay attention to how the shoulder blade is moving when the arm is lifted. So you'll see that the triangular bit at the bottom wings outward. So when we lift the arm, and here we just lifting it up in front like this. So when we lift the arm like this, then in order to facilitate that movement, the shoulder blade actually has to move in this fashion so that that bottom bit comes out, swings out. So let's start by just taking the hand, whichever arm you've been working with, whichever of your shoulder, take that hand and just put it in front of you like I'm doing. And just turn the hand, imagining that your hand is the shoulder blade so that you can get a sense of that, of what that is like. So imagine that your hand is the shoulder blade so that you're getting an image for yourself of how the shoulder blade is going to move when you lift the arm. And then continue to have that image of the shoulder blade moving in that way and lift the arm in front. Just swing it forward gently and then down. And just imagining that the shoulder blade is moving in that way. So still have that sense the shoulder blade is just like a slippery bar of soap. It's just sliding and gliding easily. And now you have a clearer sense of how it's sliding and gliding and swinging outward in that way as you lift the arm. Okay, so one more thing that we can do on this side, which is that you can see also in this image, the clavicle, which is, again, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this, if you can see it, this right here is the clavicle. This you can see slightly in this image, at least, that the outer portion actually comes up a bit when we lift the arm. The inner portion does not. So the inner portion stays relatively in the same location, but the outer portion lifts up. So you could take your opposite hand, the one that you're not going to be lifting, and see if you can find the inner part of the collarbone, the clavicle, where it connects into the breastbone, or at least the general area, and just put the fingers there so it's kind of anchored and you get a sense that that stays right there. That's not moving, that's not lifting or anything. It just kind of stays right there. And then we're going to lift the arm and have that sense that so it's like a lever where the outer portion is lifting up, the inner portion stays where it is. So lift the arm a few times with that image and just give yourself just a sense that your arm is just able to float right up. Just float it right up. Let it be easy, fun, enjoyable, comfortable. And then let the arm rest. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, so just feel the difference between the two sides. And again, this is an important part. You have to let yourself experience the update. Otherwise, it's a bit less useful. And at first maybe you're not sure what to think about this. You think maybe I don't even think, I'm not sure I even like it. Maybe sometimes at first our brain says, this change is bad. I don't like it. Any change is bad sometimes to some brains. But here's more mercurial magic. You can just say, this must be positive change. Positive change is taking place. So even though I'm not quite sure how to make sense of it just yet, I know that it is good. So just tell yourself that. Just open to that. Just start to sense how that could be true. What have we done here? We've done some gentle movement with some useful imagery and thoughts, and we're just finding out how that can have a positive effect. Well, surely it's going to be positive. So let's just allow for that to happen. And we can support ourselves in that by telling ourselves the truth, which is, even if my brain is initially telling me that this is bad, actually, I know it must be good. So I'm just going to let it be. I'm going to let this positive change take place. And I'm not going to interfere by going back into my habitual limiting negative habits. Okay, so maybe if you're like me, you might want to do some of the same things on the other side, because it's be nice to have the updates on both sides. So let's take the other hand that, well, let's go to the other side. So take the hand, the opposite hand of the side that we're going to work on now, and we're going to bring it to that collarbone and just kind of feel the collarbone, find out where it is, see if you can get any kind of sense of where that collarbone is. And, maybe some of it's going to be clear to you and some of it won't be. That's pretty normal. So don't dismay if that's the case. That's fine. But just see what you can find there and just kind of feel out and see if you can find where does it end, where it is, it comes all the way into the kind of pit of the throat. And then if you feel out, how far does it go? Probably about out to there. Okay. And then go back, walk your fingers back and see if you can find, remember that the image of the scapula, the shoulder blade, and remember it has that spine on it that runs horizontally. See if you can find that with your fingers. And then just come a little forward of that and feel that soft tissue there. That's the supraspinatus. And if you're not quite sure, then that's okay. That's part of the process. Just play around, see what you can find, and just give yourself a massage there. In any case, it'll be nice to give yourself a massage, right? So see if you can find, if you go out toward the arm, you'll find the space between the shoulder blade, that spine of the shoulder blade and the clavicle kind of narrows and it gets a little pinchy. And depending, you may find for some people, they'll find that it's somewhat tender there. So, don't hurt yourself. I mean, you're not going to injure yourself, but don't make it painful. Let it be nice, but just feel and just give yourself a little massage and just know this can soften and let go. Okay. And then you can just do a little winging of your arm. Just maybe that will help you feel more clearly where that supraspinatus is, because that should contract and release when you wing the arm like this, just lifting out to the side and lowering. And again, that will do some pandiculation on the lowering phase. So let that be really slow and mindful. And that will really help you release that supraspinatus so you can feel it actually releasing under your fingers. And then bring your hand down and just feel what you notice now. Boy, I notice a difference. I hope you feel a difference. And here too, just remind yourself, because sometimes brains say all change is bad change. Just remind yourself, no, this is good change. I'm pleased with this change, and I'm going to let this change. I'm going to let this change work its magic on me so that I can feel better and better, and I can feel more and more stable and have a clearer sense of myself so that I can be more functional. I can feel better, less pain, easier movement, more ability. And then what was the next thing we did? Oh yeah, so now we can remember the scapula. When we lift the arm, the scapula is going to swing out. So let's take that hand and place it in the space in front of us, like I'm doing with my hand, and just mimic that with the hand, pretending that the hand is the scapula. So just let it swing out so you can, and connect that so you can feel that that's what the scapula is going to do when you lift the arm. Okay, so now you've got that image, and just let the arm float up and have that sense that the slippery bar of soap there is swinging out easily each time you lift the arm, letting it float up. Okay, and then we can bring the other hand to the inner part of the collarbone, and we're just going to feel where that collarbone, more or less, where it kind of connects in with the breastbone at the pit of the throat. And we're just going to let the fingers rest there just to anchor it, just so we can feel it. That's not really going to be moving much. That's just the fulcrum of this lever. And then we lift the arm, let it float up, and get a sense that the outer part of that clavicle is moving up, but the inner part just is the fulcrum. It stays where it is. Just letting it float up easily, and just tell yourself each time, my arm just floats up easily. Just floats up. So it's another kind of image. The arm is just floating up. And then let everything rest. So that was quite a lot that we've done. And that's all the movement that we're going to do today. But now we're going to see if we can explore these same kinds of themes in a subtler level. So this is Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness. It's the top of the hour, and I have to announce the name of the program. You're listening to Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness. So this is Relax into Health, Wealth, and Happiness. So let's explore the theme of relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness. And let's start with health. So I want you to think to yourself, I am healthy. So just think that thought, I am healthy. Just think it, and then just pause and just let that thought be there. I am healthy. And in the space that follows, notice what else, what that thought provokes. So just there's going to be some provocation, because we have conditioning, and so that conditioning gets provoked when you just, because that phrase is a trigger for something that's already there, that's conditioned into you. And some of it is congruent with what you want, and some of it is not, right? So just notice, just think, I am healthy. And then just pause, rest, and notice whatever is provoked into that space that follows. So just repeat that a few times. So just think, I am healthy. And then just notice whatever comes up. And then again, I am healthy, and notice whatever comes up. For good or bad, it doesn't, here, all we want to do is just notice. So don't worry. Oh, Rooster likes this part of the exercise. So, okay, hopefully you've done that. And so now, what comes up, we could say, are thoughts and images, sensations. And some of them, as I've already pointed out, are helpful, and some of them are unhelpful. Or we could say some are congruent with who we know ourselves to be and what we desire, and some of them are incongruent, right? So, for example, you might, when you think the thought, I am healthy, if you're very fortunate, maybe you agree with that statement to a certain degree. Maybe you think, oh yeah, I am healthy. In which case, maybe you have some helpful thoughts and images that arise, like, well, that's true, I am healthy. And maybe there's, an image of yourself doing some things that you consider to be healthy things that you did today or that you regularly do, or maybe just a sense of a felt sense of what health is for you, and you just feel, yeah, that's how I feel. I am healthy. That's actually a true statement. So if that's the case, that's really wonderful, right? That's great, and that indicates that you really are, you are experiencing health on multiple levels, right? So that's great. That's our aim. We want that fundamental truth of health to be able to express through all levels of our experience. So at the deepest level, of course, if you completely let go of everything, then there's only the fundamental source or essence of health itself. There's nothing to oppose it. So at that level, there is absolute health, we could say. But then as we move outward, we could say into expression or into manifestation, there's varying degrees of expression of that health, and it's maybe impeded or interfered with by some other conditioning that runs counter to that. So we explored the possibility that if I think I am healthy, there could be some congruent thoughts and images that arise that are provoked, but there could also be, and maybe you've noticed some of these, some that are incongruent that say, oh, that's a joke, I'm not healthy at all, or images of the unhealthy things that you imagine that you've done recently, or feelings or sensations that you perceive as being manifestations of an absence of health or a lack of health. So you might be in the habit of imagining yourself as not being healthy. Okay, so we've got these two things. Now we could say, we'll simplify it just by saying congruent and incongruent. Congruent with what we really want, which would be health, and incongruent with what we really want, which is health. So again, just think, I am healthy. And if the image that comes is congruent, then or the sense that comes is congruent, or the thoughts that come are congruent, then just relax and just be happy, right? I mean, there's no problem then. Everything is great. If you think I'm healthy and what follows is congruent, then there's no need to grasp at anything. There's no need to try and strain or anything. It's just perfect. Just let it be. You don't need to do anything. Just let it be. Just soak in that. Just be happy. Just be very, very happy with that experience, because that's good. It's what you want. Now, on the other hand, you think I am healthy, and if what follows is something that is incongruent, then now what we want to do is figure out how do we change this, right? Because in a sense, we could say that this process of relaxing into health, wealth, and happiness is, as we could simplify it to say that all we really want to do is we want to release what is incongruent, and we want to allow what is congruent, right? Because if we can just release what's incongruent and just allow what is congruent to become stronger and replace the incongruent, then what we have is congruent, coherent, authentic expression of our truth. And that's kind of the aim. And naturally, as that happens and that expresses at all levels, that actually is our experience, and it manifests at all levels. So not only are you imagining that and having thoughts that are congruent with that and having those sensations, but your actions become congruent with that. Your entire experience becomes completely congruent with that. And I hope that's not hard to understand. I mean, that's basically fundamentally all that's ever going on, is that our actions follow our perception. And so, and it becomes it's a cycle. So it feeds back into itself. And we would call that a vicious cycle if it's feeding back in what we don't want. But the same process can be a virtuous cycle if it's what we do want. So it's really as simple, maybe maddeningly simple, as just this basic thing that I'm describing, which is we just allow and be grateful for what's congruent, and then we just want to know how do we dissolve what is incongruent. Okay, so just notice again, you think I am healthy. And whatever it is that comes, if it's congruent, just have gratitude. Just soak in that and feel good. I mean, it naturally feels good. Just let it be. You don't need to hold on to it. If it fades, don't worry. There's plenty more where that came from. So just be grateful while it's here. And that's it. As simple as that. But then if you say, I'm healthy, and then what comes is, this thing, oh, what are you talking about? I'm not healthy at all. I'm this, that, and the other. I can barely get out of bed, and I've got all these problems, and I don't feel good. And you start to feel those sensations and all the confirmation that, so here we see the vicious cycle taking place. But what do we do? Okay, so there's a fundamental structure in nature. Remember, I started with that. So in nature, fundamental structure, and one of the simple patterns of the structure in nature, but we see it at all levels. So it's a very, very important pattern. And I've talked about it plenty, but so it's not going to be new to you, but just hear it in a fresh way. Beginning, middle, end. So notice that prior to the unwanted, incongruent experience, that experience isn't there, right? That might seem trivial, but it's actually really important. So prior to that experience being provoked, it's not there. It's not present. You're not aware of it. Then it exists for however long it does, and then it goes away. At some point, sooner or later, it has to go away. It can't remain forever. Okay, so beginning, middle, end. So prior to the beginning, it's not there, then it's there, and then it disappears. So one of the things that what we can notice is that the vicious cycle sustains the thing that we don't want. So the middle is prolonged. I mean, actually what's happening is it just keeps getting repeated, but we could understand it as being a prolongation of the middle. And so we want to see, how is that happening? How does that get sustained? Because if we can understand that, then we know the answer to our question about what do we do. So just take a look and you'll see that the way it gets sustained is because, well, all things in nature, in order to exist, have to have, they're fundamentally composed of energy. So what does it mean for something to be sustained? Well, it means it just continues to get fed energy. That's not a difficult thing to understand, right? I mean, everything in nature exists so long as it continues to have energy and can repeat itself. So, but when the energy is no longer available, then it can't sustain itself. So how is it that this thing that we don't want gets its energy? So just look and you'll see the way it gets its energy is because you give it energy by struggling with it. So you've probably heard that catchy phrase, what you resist persists. If not, then you've just heard it from me. What you resist persists. And it's true. And I've just described the basic mechanism by which that happens. The resistance is the feeding of the energy to the thing. So it's like a Toyota Prius. If you don't know it, you say, "Oh my goodness, Joe, what are you talking about?" It's a Toyota Prius. These the hybrid vehicles, maybe the electric vehicles, I don't know. They probably electric vehicles, but the hybrid vehicles, they capture they recapture electricity in the braking. So when braking the vehicle, when not damaging the vehicle, braking is in slowing to stop the vehicle, applying the brakes, there's friction. The friction is energy that can be recaptured as electricity. So that is one of the mechanisms of those vehicles. So there's resistance, and the resistance, the braking is a resistance, right? Generates friction, which is energy, which is then recaptured to stores and as energy to then fuel the car. So there's how, the resistance is persistence. So when we're resisting, we're feeding energy back in to the thing that we don't want. So just notice this thing that you don't want. So I am healthy. And sometimes what appears is congruent, and that's great. No problem. Just be happy. Just soak in that. Be really happy, grateful. It's really nice. That's what you want. So just allow it. And then that too fades. And then think again, I am healthy. And at some point, maybe there's something that appears that's incoherent, something you don't want, the negative, unwanted. Just notice if there's resistance, and don't energize it. Don't resist. Just let go. So here's the thing about nature. These in Hindu thought, these three primal states are given names, a variety of names, many names. One of the names, some of the names are Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And Shiva is the transformer or destroyer, and has different forms, many different forms. Some of it's, but not all, many of the forms. Some of the forms, like Kali and Rudra, are like very, they're sort of horrific. Because they just destroy everything. It's like flaming tongues and blood dripping teeth, and malas of skulls, and they just eat everything and destroy everything, dancing, and just total destruction. So this energy is here. That's the point. And so start to just notice that energy is already here. Notice the sound that's happening right now. It disappears like that. So there's the same basic structure of nature that I've talked about. With sound, we can notice prior to the sound, there's silence. Then there's the start of the sound. The sound exists, and then it disappears, or it fades, or it vanishes. What is it that takes the sound? We call that energy Rudra or Kali. We call it whatever we want, but start to feel it's an alive presence that's taking it all. Just notice it's taking the sound. It's just it's enormous. It's infinite. It just takes everything. There's no limit to it. It's infinite capacity to just take everything. No matter how much we produce, it takes it, right? No matter how much I blab on, this principle takes it all. And so notice that it's tireless, it's infinite, it has capacity to take everything. So it can take all of your incongruent, unwanted stuff and just let it. So you think, I am healthy. And if something arises, if that provokes something that's unwanted, don't resist it. Just surrender it to this energy that takes everything. Yeah, it really helps. Remember, we worked with images. So if you can really start to get a clear image of this energy as like personified as something that just sucks it all in, just takes it all. Tirelessly, infinitely takes everything. And you really start to feel it and perceive it. Then you notice it's so easy. You don't have to do anything. So the thing that's unwanted, just surrender it. Don't do anything with it. Just let it be taken. Let nature work for you instead of working against nature, right? Because it's like, if there's something that you don't want, nature's right here to take it. But you're saying, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. It's like, give it to me. You say, I don't want it. I don't want it. And it's like, yeah, but give it to me. I don't want it. You're just keep holding on to it, energizing it. So you just surrender it, let it go. And then again, you just let it go, let it be taken by nature. So it's just completely taken away. Nature just sucks it up, vanishes. And now again, I am healthy. The rooster likes this. Roosters are very healthy. So you just see now the base, maybe understand the basic process. It's very simple. It's like so simple. It seems almost like, why on earth did I have to talk about it for so long? But see how powerful this is. So you just think, I am healthy. And then if what arises is something positive, congruent with what you want, that you like, then just be grateful. Be happy. Just let it be for as long as it's here. And then, yes, nature takes that too, but don't dismay, because this process that you're engaging with is strengthening that image for you. It's strengthening that experience, so that it becomes more and more familiar, easier to access. So it's letting nature do everything. So you just think, I am healthy. Let that, if it's positive, congruent, be grateful, let it be. And then when that also goes away, then again, just, I am healthy. And keep repeating this a few more times. And each time, if it's not what you want, don't fight with it. Don't struggle. Don't dismay. Don't get worried. Don't get upset. Don't be frightened. Just let nature take it. Just sucks it up. And just be happy now that nature has taken this from you, that you didn't, this burden you didn't want. And again, I am healthy. And the more you do this, the more familiar what is desirable becomes. Now, at first, it seems like you don't know how to do that. And maybe at first, if you don't perceive yourself as being healthy at all, then you don't really connect with that truth at all. So every time you say, I am healthy, what comes up is the unwanted, because that's what you're familiar with. But you keep doing this, eventually what starts to happen is some little glimmer of something, you just, and maybe you even have to kind of look for it a little bit, like what would just imagine, maybe you just imagine what it might be like for somebody somewhere to be healthy. You could do that. Just, you say, or you could just say, in my imagination, I am healthy. That's helpful, because that will help you to bypass the resistance of the conscious mind. You just, conscious mind says, oh, in your imagination, fine, you can have that. In my dreams, I am healthy. Or if that's too much of a stretch, you can just say, I can imagine somebody who's healthy. I can imagine what that experience might be like. And so you just start to cultivate that, so that you can start to connect with it, and it can start to become real for you. And then bit by bit, that replaces the unwanted habits, you see, because that's all that's going on. We just have habits, and if the habits are unwanted, then we have unwanted habits, and we can replace those with that which is coherent and congruent with what we really want. So we're a bit over, but let's just, to round things out, let's repeat the same process with, so I am wealthy. So just repeat the same process with, I am wealthy. So you just think, I am wealthy. And if it's positive, what's provoked here, then just be grateful for that. So maybe you get a sense of, yeah, I really am wealthy. And maybe that's financially wealthy, but maybe not just financially wealthy. Maybe it's that I'm wealthy in good, meaningful relationships. I'm wealthy in my connection with nature. I'm wealthy in my ability to bring about positive change in my life. I'm wealthy in my access to infinite love. So many ways in which we're wealthy. So you say, I am wealthy, and you just notice, does that provoke something that's true and positive and congruent with with who you really know yourself to be, great. Just be happy and grateful. And if what it provokes instead is something where you think, oh, I'm not wealthy, I'm poor, I'm lacking, I don't have enough, there's not enough for me, the world's too difficult and painful and frightening and yada, 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 then just, again, don't fight with it, don't struggle with it, don't try and fix it, don't try and don't do anything, but just let it go. Let nature take it. Remember, there's this power in nature that it's what it does is it transforms, it takes the thing. It has an infinite capacity for this. You don't need to make it do that. It already is doing that. You just stop struggling with it, stop interfering, just let it have it. And it does, just like that. It just takes it. And then again, I am wealthy. Okay, so now finally, to round the whole thing out, we'll do the same process with I am happy. So I think you know the process by now. So just do it a few times and just see what happens. So maybe you find that you start to actually feel happy. Maybe you actually start to feel good. So I hope that this has made sense to you. I hope that this has been very powerful for you, and that it is connected you directly to your uh, to your real potential, to what's really available to you. Not only your potential, but your truth. Knowing that you really, honestly, are healthy, wealthy, and happy. That's actually your truth, and that you've always known that. And in fact, all of the problems that you've ever imagined that you had were only because you were struggling with the seeming in congruence between who you know yourself to be and what you were perceiving. And now you have, I believe, a quite simple, direct, and very powerful method to bring about that change, so that the truth of who you really are can be expressed at all levels. And again, as I've been trying to make the point recently, that's really important. It's not enough for us just to be able to say, well, I know that I am uh, ultimately complete because I am the source of all that is. I am formless awareness. That's great. It's important. It's foundational, but it's not sufficient in and of itself, because we're actually here to know that and express that at all levels. And so here we have a way in which to do that. And it's always going on. Actually, this exercise that we've just gone through helps to reveal a process that's always taking place. But if we weren't aware of it, then we couldn't do anything about it. Now that we are aware of it, we can work with it to transform the vicious cycles into virtuous cycles, so that we can fulfill our purpose of expressing ourselves truthfully as we really are at all levels. So that concludes the formal portion for today's meeting, and I'm happy to stay on for Q&A if there's anything from anybody who's here live, but let me end this recording first, and I'm going to do that now.